Admiral Thexavar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His purple skin reflected the blue glow from the control panels around him. As a Zephyrian, he had served the Empire for over 40 years, commanding fleets that kept peace across dozens of star systems. The communication officer's voice broke the quiet. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal from the 3rd Battle Fleet." Thexavar turned quickly. The 3rd Fleet was supposed to be patrolling the border near Kepler 442, a system that had been giving them trouble lately. Rebel groups had been attacking supply convoys there. "Put it through," he ordered. The speakers crackled with static. Then Admiral Corvin's voice came through, filled with panic. "Something's wrong here. Our sensors are showing impossible readings. There's a ship, but it's not really there." More voices joined in the background, all shouting at once. Thexavar could hear weapons being charged and alarms blaring. "Corvin, calm down. What exactly are you seeing?" Thexavar asked. "The energy signature doesn't match anything in our databases. It's huge, but our scanners keep losing it. One second it's there, the next it's gone. Wait, what is that thing doing to our ships?" The transmission became filled with screaming. Men and women cried out in terror. Then Corvin's voice came through one last time. "By the gods, it's not possible. How can they—" Silence. Thexavar stared at the communication panel. Officer tried to re-establish contact. The young Zephyrian worked frantically at his controls. "I'm trying, sir, but there's nothing. All 12 ships of the 3rd Fleet have gone completely silent. Send a reconnaissance drone to their last known position immediately." 2 hours later, the drone's report came back. Thexavar read it 3 times before he could believe what he was seeing. The space where the 3rd Fleet had been stationed was completely empty. Not a single piece of debris, no bodies floating in space, no wreckage, nothing. But there was something else in the report that made his blood run cold. Strange energy readings lingered in the area. The drone had detected traces of an unknown technology that seemed to bend space itself. Thexavar called his science officer, Commander Zelix, to the bridge. The elderly scientist examined the readings with growing concern. "Admiral, these energy signatures are unlike anything we've encountered before. They seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Our current technology cannot produce anything like this. Could it be rebel technology? Something they've been hiding?" Zelix shook his head. "No, sir. This is far beyond anything the rebel groups possess. This technology is centuries ahead of ours." That night, Thexavar couldn't sleep. He went to his private office and accessed the Imperial archives. Something about those energy readings seemed familiar, like a half-remembered dream. He searched through old battle reports, classified documents, and historical records. Most of the files were about recent conflicts with rebel groups and border disputes with neighboring empires. Then he found something that made him stop breathing. Deep in the classified section, he discovered reports from 300 years ago, during the Great Expansion. The Empire had been conquering new worlds back then, bringing civilization to primitive species across the galaxy. One report mentioned a species called humans. They had put up fierce resistance when the Empire tried to conquer their colonies. The report described strange ships that could appear and disappear at will. Ships that existed in normal space one moment and seemed to phase out of reality the next. The Empire had eventually won, of course. They always did. The human colonies were absorbed into the Empire and the survivors became citizens. But some of the reports mentioned rumors that not all humans had surrendered. Some had supposedly fled into deep space, but the Empire had dismissed these as stories. What caught Thexavar's attention was a description of energy readings from those old human ships. They matched exactly what his drone had detected at Kepler 442. The next morning, Thexavar requested a meeting with High Command. He traveled to the capital world of Zephyr Prime, where the Empire's military leaders gathered in their golden towers. General Vorthan, the supreme military commander, listened to Thexavar's report with growing impatience. "Admiral, you're suggesting that some mythical human survivors destroyed an entire battle fleet? 12 dreadnoughts just vanished into thin air. The evidence suggests that rebels caught the 3rd Fleet off guard and destroyed them completely. Perhaps they used some kind of new weapon that vaporizes ships and leaves no debris." Other generals around the table nodded in agreement. Thexavar realized they had already made up their minds. "Sir, the energy readings don't match any known rebel technology. And the historical records show—" General Vorthan slammed his fist on the table. "Those are 300-year-old stories, Admiral. Fairy tales told by frightened soldiers. The humans were defeated centuries ago. Those who survived became loyal citizens of the Empire. But what if some escaped? What if they've been hiding in deep space all this time, growing stronger? Impossible. Our long-range scouts would have detected any large human settlements. Thexvar left the meeting feeling frustrated and worried. The generals refused to believe that the threat could be anything more than rebels with new weapons. They ordered him to increase patrols and hunt down the rebel cells. But Thexvar knew better. He had read those old reports carefully. The descriptions of human technology matched too closely with what had happened to the Third Fleet. Back at his command ship, he called together his most trusted officers. I want continuous monitoring of all fleet movements. If anything strange happens anywhere in our territory, I want to know about it immediately. His communications officer looked confused. Admiral, High Command ordered us to focus on rebel strongholds. We'll do that too. But I have a feeling that what happened to the Third Fleet was just the beginning. For the next several days, everything seemed normal. Patrols reported no unusual activity. Supply convoys moved safely between systems. The Empire's vast network of trade routes continued to function smoothly. Then, on the fourth day, it happened again. This time it was the Seventh Fleet, stationed near the mining world of Titan V. The same pattern repeated exactly: panicked transmissions about impossible sensor readings, screaming voices, and then complete silence. When reconnaissance drones reached their position, they found the same thing: empty space and those strange energy signatures. Thexvar immediately sent his report to High Command, along with detailed analysis comparing the two incidents. The energy readings were identical. The pattern was unmistakable, but the generals still refused to listen. They insisted it was rebels using some kind of cloaking device combined with powerful new weapons. As Thexvar sat in his command chair, staring out at the stars, he wondered how many more fleets would have to disappear before the Empire took this threat seriously. Somewhere out there, something was hunting them. Something with technology far beyond their understanding. Something that could make entire battle fleets vanish without leaving a trace. And if his suspicions were correct, something that had been waiting 3 centuries for revenge. Fleet Admiral Kethron received the emergency briefing while eating breakfast in his quarters aboard the massive flagship Dominion. The elderly Zephyrian had commanded fleets for over 50 years, but the report in front of him made no sense. 5 Imperial fleets had now disappeared in the past month. The Third Fleet near Kepler 442, the 7th Fleet at Titan V, the 9th Fleet protecting the trade routes near Alpha Centauri, the 15th Fleet guarding the outer colonies, and just yesterday, the 21st Fleet vanished while investigating one of the earlier disappearances. Each incident followed the same impossible pattern. Ships reported strange sensor readings. Crews panicked about something they couldn't explain, then complete silence. When rescue teams arrived, they found empty space and those mysterious energy signatures that defied all known physics. Kethron stood up from his breakfast and walked to his desk. The reports were scattered across its surface, each one telling the same terrifying story. 60 ships had vanished without a trace. Nearly 15,000 Imperial citizens gone. His aide, Commander Vexta, knocked on the door and entered. Sir, Admiral Thexvar is requesting permission to speak with you directly. He says it's about the missing fleets. Send him in. Admiral Thexvar looked tired when he entered the room. His usually perfect military uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles surrounded his eyes. Admiral Kethron, we need to talk. The High Command refuses to listen, but I've discovered something important about these disappearances. Kethron gestured to a chair. Sit down and tell me everything. Thexvar pulled out a portable data pad and activated a holographic display. Ancient documents appeared in the air between them. These are classified records from 300 years ago, during the Great Expansion. They describe the Empire's conquest of human colonies in this sector of the galaxy. I know the basic history. We absorbed their civilization into the Empire. Most of them became productive citizens. That's what the official histories say, but these classified military reports tell a different story. The humans didn't surrender easily. They had ships with advanced stealth technology that could phase in and out of normal space. Ships that appeared on sensors one moment and vanished the next. Thexvar manipulated the display showing energy signature analyses. Look at these readings from battles 3 centuries ago. Then compare them to what our drones detected at the sites where our fleets disappeared. Kethron studied the data carefully. The patterns were identical. This could be a coincidence. Many alien species have experimented with stealth technology. There's more. Thexvar activated another file. According to these reports, not all humans were captured during the conquest. Some colonies evacuated completely before Imperial forces arrived. The commanders assumed they had simply fled to other human-controlled systems, but what if they didn't? What are you suggesting? What if some humans escaped into deep space and have been hiding there for 3 centuries, building up their strength, advancing their technology, waiting for the right moment to strike back? Kethran was quiet for a long moment. The idea seemed impossible, but the evidence was troubling. Even if you're right, how could such a small group pose a threat to the entire Imperial Navy? Because they're not fighting us directly. Look at the pattern, sir. They're not destroying our ships in battle. They're making them disappear. Our fleets are being taken intact, crews and all. But why? What would be the point of capturing our ships instead of destroying them? Before Thexvar could answer, an alarm began blaring throughout the ship. The 2 admirals rushed to the bridge where the communications officer was frantically trying to establish contact with the 4th Fleet. Sir, we just lost contact with Admiral Morgan's fleet near the Proxima system. Same pattern as before. Panicked transmissions, then silence. Kethran felt a chill run down his spine. The 4th Fleet was one of their strongest, with 16 heavy cruisers and 2 battleships. Dispatch reconnaissance drones immediately. I want a full scan of that system. While they waited for the drone reports, Kethran called an emergency meeting of all remaining fleet commanders. 23 admirals appeared as holograms around the conference table, their faces grim. The situation is worse than we initially thought, Kethran began. We're not dealing with rebels or pirates. We're facing an enemy with technology far beyond our current capabilities. Admiral Zontar, commanding the 6th Fleet, spoke up. Sir, what evidence do we have that this isn't just some new rebel weapon? Thexvar stood up and shared his historical analysis with the group. Several admirals looked skeptical, but others began nodding as they studied the data. Even if this is true, said Admiral Reka, how do we fight an enemy we can't see? Our sensors can't lock onto their ships, and they can apparently strike anywhere without warning. We need to change our tactics, Kethran said. Instead of spreading our fleets across the Empire, we should concentrate our forces. Make them come to us instead of hunting for them. Admiral Thexvar frowned. But sir, that would leave most of our territory undefended. The outer colonies would be vulnerable. The outer colonies are already vulnerable. We've lost 6 fleets trying to protect them. At least if we group together, we might have a chance to detect and engage this threat. The reconnaissance report from Proxima arrived an hour later. As expected, the 4th Fleet had vanished completely, leaving only those strange energy signatures. But this time there was something new. The drones detected debris from a small human shuttlecraft floating near the edge of the system. When they analyzed the wreckage, they found evidence that it was recently manufactured using advanced materials that didn't exist 3 centuries ago. Commander Vexita brought the report to Kethran's attention. Sir, this proves that Admiral Thexvar's theory is correct. There are humans out there with advanced technology. Kethran studied the analysis. The shuttle's hull was made from a metal that could shift its molecular structure, making it nearly invisible to most sensors. The engine components used principles of physics that Imperial scientists barely understood. Contact the Imperial Science Academy, he ordered. I want our best researchers analyzing this debris. Maybe we can learn something about their technology. Over the next week, more disturbing reports arrived. 3 more fleets had disappeared, the 11th, 16th, and 23rd. Each time the same pattern repeated, but now they also began finding traces of human presence at each site, small pieces of debris that proved their enemy was real. The Imperial Science Academy's report arrived 5 days later. Dr. Helana, the Empire's leading physics expert, delivered her findings personally. Admiral, the technology in this debris is revolutionary. The humans appear to have discovered how to manipulate space-time itself. Their ships don't just use stealth, they can actually phase partially out of our dimension. Is that even possible? Kethran asked. Theoretically, yes, but the energy requirements would be enormous. They would need power sources far beyond anything we've developed. How do we fight something that can exist outside normal space? Dr. Helana looked uncomfortable. With our current technology, I'm not sure we can. They have all the advantages. They can see us, but we can't see them. They can strike without warning and retreat to a dimension we can't reach. That evening, Kethran sat alone in his quarters, staring at star maps that showed the locations where Imperial fleets had vanished. A pattern was emerging. The attacks were spreading inward from the outer colonies toward the heart of the Empire. His communication system chimed. A message had arrived from the governors of 12 outer worlds. They were declaring independence from the Empire, stating that they no longer believed the Imperial Navy could protect them. More messages followed throughout the night. Colony after colony announced they were leaving the Empire or seeking protection from other powers. The news of disappearing fleets had spread and panic was setting in across their territory. By morning, Catherine realized that whoever was behind these attacks had achieved something no enemy had ever accomplished before. They were causing the Empire to collapse from within, without firing a single shot at Imperial worlds. The ghost ships, whatever they were, had struck fear so deep that entire systems were abandoning the Empire, rather than risk being left undefended. And the worst part was, Catherine knew it was working. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Revenant, watching stars that seemed to shimmer and bend around her ship. The phase drive created a strange effect that made normal space look like it was viewed through water. She had grown up seeing the universe this way, and it felt more natural than the harsh reality of normal space. At 45 years old, Sarah was the third generation of her family to serve aboard the Revenant. Her grandmother had been part of the original crew that escaped when the Zephyrian Empire conquered Earth's colonies. Her father had commanded the ship for 30 years before passing the responsibility to her. The Revenant was more than just a ship. It was humanity's last hope for freedom. "Captain, we're approaching the target zone," reported Lieutenant Marcus Torres from the navigation station. Like all the crew aboard the Revenant, he had been born and raised in the hidden spaces between solar systems, never setting foot on a planet controlled by the Empire. Sarah walked to the command center, her boots silent on the deck plating. The Revenant had been built for stealth in every way possible. Even the sounds inside the ship were dampened to prevent any vibrations from leaking into normal space. "Bring us to phase shift level 3, she ordered. "Let's take a look at what the Empire has sent us this time." The main display showed the 8th Imperial Fleet moving through the asteroid field near Vega 7. 12 ships, including 2 heavy battleships, exactly the kind of formation the Empire used to patrol their border regions. Chief Engineer David Kim looked up from his console. "Captain, phase drive is operating at optimal levels. We could take the entire fleet without them ever knowing we were here." Sarah nodded, but her expression remained serious. What they were doing wasn't just military strategy. It was justice for 3 centuries of occupation. Every person aboard the Revenant had lost family during the Empire's conquest of human space. "Remember, we need them alive," she said to her crew. "Dead enemies can't negotiate for peace." Begin phaseboard preparation. The Revenant's most advanced technology wasn't just its ability to hide between dimensions. The ship could also extend its phase field to create temporary bridges into normal space, allowing the crew to board enemy vessels while remaining partially phased. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's science officer, monitored the phase field generators from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting normal Empire patrol patterns. They have no idea we're here." "Good. Begin approach to the flagship." The Revenant moved through phase space like a shark through dark water. In normal space, Imperial sensors would occasionally pick up strange readings, but the ship's phase signature made it impossible to target or track. Sarah had studied every detail of Empire ship designs during her 30 years of preparation for this campaign. She knew exactly where their command centers were located, how their security systems worked, and what their standard response procedures would be. "Phase bridge ready, Captain," reported Commander Lisa Park, the ship's tactical officer. "Boarding team standing by." Sarah's boarding team consisted of 20 volunteers, all wearing advanced environmental suits that could maintain partial phase shift. They would board the Imperial flagship, disable the crew with neural disruption devices, and then extend the Revenant's phase field to capture the entire ship. Initiate phase bridge. The air in the boarding bay shimmered as a tunnel of altered space opened between the Revenant and the Empire flagship. Sarah led her team through the passage, their boots making no sound as they stepped from one reality into another. Inside the Imperial ship, the Zephyrian crew continued their normal duties, completely unaware that humans were walking among them. The phase shift made Sarah's team invisible and intangible to normal space, like ghosts moving through solid walls. They reached the command bridge within minutes. Admiral Colvin stood at his command station, studying star charts and discussing patrol routes with his officers. He had no idea that his ship was already captured. Sarah activated her neural disruptor and set it to wide area effect. The device sent out electromagnetic pulses that would render the Zephyrian crew unconscious without permanent harm. Within seconds, every being on the bridge collapsed peacefully to the floor. Bridge secured, Sarah reported through her communication link. Beginning ship-wide neural suppression, her team spread throughout the Imperial flagship, systematically disabling every crew member. The neural disruptors were designed specifically for Zephyrian physiology. They would sleep for several hours and wake up with only mild headaches. While her boarding team secured the flagship, Sarah activated her suit's communication array and contacted the Revenant. Commander Park, extend phase field to encompass the entire enemy fleet. Understood, Captain. Beginning fleet phase capture. The Revenant's advanced technology could create phase bubbles large enough to contain multiple starships. One by one, each vessel in the Imperial fleet began to shift out of normal spacetime, joining the growing collection of captured ships in the phase dimension. Admiral Colvin and his crew would wake up in a place that existed between realities, surrounded by the other Imperial fleets that had been captured over the past months. They would be alive and unharmed, but completely cut off from normal space. Sarah returned to the Revenant as the last Imperial ship phased out of reality. Through the observation deck, she could see the captured fleet floating in the strange twilight of phase space, where time moved differently and the laws of physics bent in impossible ways. Captain, that makes 9 fleets we've captured, reported Lieutenant Torres. Nearly 2,000 ships and close to 400,000 Imperial personnel. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. The plan her grandmother had developed 3 centuries ago was working perfectly. Instead of fighting the Empire directly, they were removing its military forces piece by piece, holding them as bargaining chips for the negotiations that would come later. The Revenant had been built in the dark spaces between solar systems by humans who had escaped the Empire's conquest. For 300 years they had survived in hidden asteroid bases and mobile stations that drifted through empty space. They had grown their population slowly and carefully, always staying hidden, always preparing for this moment. Sarah walked to her private quarters and activated a secure communication link. Images of 5 other humans appeared on her screen, the leaders of the other survivor communities scattered throughout the galaxy. Captain Chen, said Admiral James Morrison, leader of the Europa Station survivors. Excellent work on the 8th Fleet. Our intelligence network reports that panic is spreading throughout Empire territory. 12. Colonies have already declared independence, added Captain Maria Santos from the Tau Ceti base. The Empire's control is collapsing exactly as we predicted. Sarah felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. My grandmother would be proud to see this day, but we need to be careful not to push too hard too fast. We want the Empire to surrender, not fight to the death. Agreed, said Admiral Morrison. How many more fleets do you think we need to capture before they're ready to negotiate? Sarah studied the tactical display showing remaining Imperial forces. Intelligence suggests they have about 40 fleets left operational. If we can reduce that number to 20 or less, they'll have no choice but to listen to our demands. Dr. Rachel Kim, leader of the research station near Wolf 359, spoke up. Sarah, our deep space monitors are detecting increased Imperial communication traffic. They're starting to figure out that we exist. That's expected. In fact, it's part of the plan. We want them to know that humanity survived, that we've grown strong, and that we're not going away. Captain Robert Lee from the Proxima base looked concerned. But what if they decide to launch a preemptive strike against human-controlled systems? There are still millions of humans living under Empire rule. They won't risk it, Sarah replied confidently. As long as we hold their fleets hostage, they have to be careful. Any attack on human civilians would result in the immediate execution of 400,000 Imperial prisoners. The conversation continued for another hour as they planned their next moves. The Revenant would continue hunting Imperial fleets, but they would also begin more direct communication with Empire leadership. It was time to let the Zephyrians know exactly what they were dealing with. After the meeting ended, Sarah returned to the observation deck. Through the strange light of phase space, she could see the captured Imperial ships floating like toys in a child's collection. Each one represented hundreds of lives that were now under her protection. Sarah thought about her grandmother's stories of Earth before the conquest. Blue skies, green forests, cities full of humans living free lives. She had never seen such things except in old photographs and video recordings. But soon, if everything went according to plan, humanity would be free again. Not just the survivors hiding in deep space, but all humans throughout the galaxy. The ghost ship that had struck fear into an empire was about to offer them a choice: surrender and survive, or continue fighting and watch their civilization collapse around them. The next phase of the plan would be the most dangerous. It was time to reveal themselves completely. Fleet Admiral Catherine stood in the central command center of Zephyr Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Empire's collapsing military situation. Red markers indicated the locations where 14 Imperial fleets had vanished. Yellow markers showed worlds that had declared independence. Orange markers indicated systems where civil unrest was spreading. More than half of the Empire's outer territories were now beyond their control. "Admiral, another emergency transmission from the Outer Council," announced Commander Vexta, his voice strained from weeks of crisis management. The holographic image of Governor Peltarn appeared in the center of the room. The elderly Zephyrian looked exhausted and frightened. "Fleet Admiral, the situation in the Outer Rim is becoming desperate. 3 more systems have declared independence overnight. The colonists no longer believe the Empire can protect them from these ghost ships." "Governor, I understand your concerns, but you don't understand," Peltarn interrupted. "Trade has completely stopped between the outer systems. Commercial shipping companies refuse to send vessels through space where Imperial fleets have vanished. Our economy is collapsing." Similar reports had been arriving daily. The mysterious enemy wasn't just capturing military vessels. They were destroying the Empire's ability to function as a unified government. After the transmission ended, Catherine called together the remaining fleet commanders. Only 26 admirals appeared as holograms around the conference table. A month ago, there had been 48. "The situation is clear," Catherine announced. "We're facing an enemy with technology far beyond our understanding. They can strike anywhere, anytime without warning. Our conventional tactics are useless against them." Admiral Thexvar leaned forward. "Sir, I've been studying the pattern of attacks. They're systematically working their way inward from the border systems toward the core worlds. At this rate, they'll reach Zephyr Prime within 6 months. What do you recommend?" "We need to change our entire strategy. Instead of trying to patrol empty space and waiting for them to attack us, we should concentrate all remaining forces into a single massive fleet. Force them to come to us." Admiral Zontar looked skeptical. "That would mean abandoning the outer colonies completely." "The outer colonies are already lost," Thexvar replied bluntly. "We don't have enough ships left to defend them. But if we gather everything we have into one location, we might be able to detect their approach and finally engage them in battle." Kethran studied the tactical displays. The plan was risky, but continuing with their current strategy meant watching their fleets disappear one by one until nothing remained. "Very well. Order all remaining fleets to converge at the Altair system. We'll make our stand there." Over the next 2 weeks, Imperial ships from across the galaxy began gathering at Altair. It was an impressive sight. Nearly 300 vessels, including 35 battleships. The largest concentration of military power the Empire had assembled in centuries. Catherine moved his command to the super battleship Eternal Glory, the Empire's most advanced warship. Its sensors could detect objects at ranges of several light years, and its weapons were powerful enough to destroy entire moons. "Admiral, the last transport convoy has arrived," reported Captain Mortex. "We now have 294 ships under your direct command." Catherine nodded grimly. It represented more than half of the Empire's remaining military strength. If this plan failed, the Empire would be defenseless. Dr. Helena, the physicist who had analyzed the human debris, stood beside him on the bridge. "Admiral, I've been working with the engineering teams to modify our sensors. We might be able to detect their phase shift technology now." "Explain." "The debris samples showed that their ships exist partially outside normal spacetime, but that dimensional shift creates gravitational distortions that we should be able to measure. I've recalibrated our sensors to look for these subtle spacetime anomalies." "Will it work?" "Theoretically, yes. but will only get a few seconds of warning before they can complete their phase shift and disappear again. 3 days later, Dr. Hel-Anna's sensors detected the first anomaly. A region of space near the edge of the Altair system showed slight gravitational fluctuations that didn't match any known celestial phenomena. "Admiral, I'm reading multiple phase distortions," she reported excitedly. "Something large is approaching, but it's not fully in our dimension." Kethran activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, battle stations, prepare for engagement with unknown enemy vessels. This may be our only chance to see what we're fighting." The gravitational distortions grew stronger. Dr. Hel-Anna's instruments detected what appeared to be a single massive ship moving through phase space, but its exact size and configuration remained unclear. "It's enormous," she whispered. "Larger than anything we've ever built. Can our weapons target it?" "Not while it remains phase-shifted. We need it to enter normal space." For several tense minutes, the Imperial fleet waited as the mysterious ship approached. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to ripple near the center of their formation. The UES Revenant materialized between the Imperial battleships like a nightmare becoming real. It was indeed massive, nearly twice the length of their largest vessels, with a hull that seemed to bend light around itself. "All ships, open fire," Kethran commanded. Hundreds of energy weapons discharged simultaneously, filling space with deadly beams of concentrated power. But the beams passed harmlessly through the enemy ship as if it wasn't completely solid. "It's still partially phased," Dr. Hel-Anna shouted over the noise of weapons fire. "Our weapons can't affect it." The Revenant began to shimmer and multiply. Suddenly, there were dozens of identical ships surrounding the Imperial fleet, all appearing and disappearing in different locations. "Impossible," breathed Captain Mortex. "Are they all real?" "Some must be illusions created by their phase drive," Dr. Hel-Anna replied. "But I can't tell which ones are real." The phantom ships began affecting the Imperial vessels in ways that defied understanding. Ships that had been functioning normally suddenly found their weapon systems offline. Engine power fluctuated wildly. Navigation computers reported impossible readings. "Admiral, our main engines are failing," reported the engineering officer. "Something is interfering with our power systems." Throughout the fleet, similar reports arrived. The enemy wasn't destroying their ships. They were disabling them systematically, leaving them helpless in space. Kethran realized with growing horror that they had walked into a trap. The enemy had let them gather their entire remaining fleet in one location, making them easier to capture. "All ships attempt to withdraw from the combat zone," he ordered desperately. But it was too late. The gravitational distortions created by the Revenant's phase drives were affecting space-time itself. The Imperial ships found themselves unable to move, trapped in bubbles of altered physics. One by one, the phantom images of the Revenant approached each Imperial vessel. As they made contact, both ships would shimmer and begin to phase out of normal reality. "They're taking us into their dimension," Dr. Hel-Anna said with amazement. "The entire fleet is being captured alive." Kethran watched helplessly as his flagship, the pride of the Imperial Navy, began to fade from normal space. The last thing he saw before the phase shift completed was the real UES Revenant, hanging in space like a dark angel of judgment. When the process finished, the Altair system was completely empty except for a few automated monitoring stations. The largest military fleet in Imperial history had vanished without firing a single effective shot. On Zephyr Prime, the news of the fleet's disappearance sent shockwaves through the government. Emperor Zelthanor called an emergency session of the High Council. "Your Majesty," reported General Vorthon, his voice shaking with fear, "we have lost contact with Fleet Admiral Kethran and the entire Altair formation. Nearly 300 ships gone without a trace." The Emperor, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, sat in silence for a long moment. "What forces do we have left?" "Less than 40 ships scattered across the core worlds. Not enough to defend even our most important systems." For the first time in Imperial history, the Zephyrian Empire faced the possibility of complete military defeat. Whoever was behind these attacks had demonstrated that they could capture any fleet, anywhere, regardless of size or defensive preparations. The Empire's fleets had vacated their stations not through retreat, but through complete disappearance. And now, with their military power broken, they would have to face whatever demands their invisible enemy chose to make. The ghost ships had won without showing themselves to be anything more than phantoms and nightmares. But everyone knew that the real confrontation was still to come. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the largest holographic display the UES Revenant had ever generated. Floating in the strange light of phase space around her ship were the captured remnants of an empire, over 500 Imperial vessels containing nearly 500,000 Zephyrian military personnel. Each ship existed in a state of suspension, their crews alive but unconscious, maintained by the Revenant's life support systems extended through phase space. It was the largest prisoner of war camp in galactic history, and it existed in a dimension between realities. "Captain, we're receiving communications from every major world in the Empire," reported Lieutenant Torres. "They're all requesting immediate negotiations." Sarah nodded. After 3 centuries of hiding, it was time for humanity to step back into the light. But first she needed to make one final demonstration of power. Open a channel to every communication network in Imperial space. I want this message to reach every world, every station, every ship they have left. The communications officer worked frantically at his console. "Channel open, Captain. You're broadcasting to approximately 2 billion beings across 43 star systems." Sarah took a deep breath and activated the transmission. Her image would now appear on screens throughout the Zephyrian Empire, the first human face most of these beings had seen in generations. "Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, my name is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Revenant. I am speaking to you from aboard humanity's most advanced vessel, currently existing in a dimension your science cannot reach." She gestured to the display behind her, showing the captured fleets floating in phase space. "As you can see, we are holding your military forces safely in our custody. Every ship, every crew member, every admiral who has disappeared over the past months is alive and unharmed. They are our guests, not our victims." The transmission continued, with images of the captured crews sleeping peacefully in their quarters, tended by automated medical systems that ensured their health and safety. 300 years ago, your empire conquered our worlds and scattered our people. You believed you had destroyed humanity's capacity for independence. You were wrong." Sarah's voice remained calm, but her words carried the weight of centuries of hidden preparation. "We did not die. We did not surrender. We simply chose to wait until we were strong enough to reclaim our freedom on our own terms." The display changed to show the hidden bases where humanity had survived. Vast installations built inside asteroids and rogue planets, mobile cities that drifted through the empty spaces between stars, generation ships that had maintained human culture during the long years of exile. "For 3 centuries we have grown in secret. We have developed technologies your scientists consider impossible. We have built fleets that can travel between dimensions, and we have waited for the right moment to return." Sarah paused, allowing her words to sink in across the Empire. That moment has now arrived. The transmission showed detailed footage of the Revenant's interior, advanced laboratories, manufacturing facilities, living quarters for thousands of people, and most importantly, the vast holding areas where captured Imperial crews were being cared for. "We could have destroyed your fleets. We could have killed your crews and left their ships as wreckage floating in space. Instead, we chose to demonstrate both our power and our mercy. Every being we have captured will be returned to you safely, once certain conditions are met." Sarah activated a new display showing a formal document with official seals and signatures from human leaders throughout the galaxy. "The Reformed Human Federation hereby presents the following terms to the Zephyrian Empire. First, immediate withdrawal of all Imperial forces from systems that were originally human colonies. Second, recognition of human independence and sovereignty over our ancestral territories. Third, reparations for 3 centuries of occupation, to be paid in the form of advanced technology transfers and preferential trade agreements." The document scrolled across screens throughout the Empire, written in perfect Zephyrian language and formatted according to their legal traditions. Fourth, the establishment of a joint human Imperial Commission to oversee the peaceful integration of human populations currently living under Imperial rule. Any human citizen who chooses to relocate to Human Federation territory will be assisted in doing so. Sarah's expression became more serious. These terms are not negotiable. They represent the minimum requirements for peace between our peoples. Your military forces currently lack the capability to resist our demands, as we have clearly demonstrated. The transmission showed real-time images of the few remaining Imperial fleets, scattered and ineffective, unable to defend even their core worlds. However, we do not wish to rule over the Zephyrian people. We seek only the return of our own freedom and the restoration of human dignity. Your empire can continue to exist and prosper, but it will do so as our equal, not as our master. Sarah gestured toward the captured fleets again. To demonstrate our commitment to peace, we are prepared to return 10% of your captured forces immediately, as a gesture of good faith. Admiral Kethron and his staff will be released within 24 hours to serve as diplomatic representatives. The transmission paused, while Sarah allowed time for translation and distribution throughout the Empire. You have 7 days to respond to our terms. If the Imperial government agrees to negotiate in good faith, we will begin the immediate release of all captured personnel and the establishment of peaceful relations between our civilizations. Sarah's voice became harder, carrying an unmistakable threat. If our terms are rejected, or if any hostile action is taken against human populations under Imperial control, we will demonstrate that our capacity for mercy is matched only by our ability to wage war on a scale you cannot imagine. The transmission ended with images of other human vessels emerging from phase space, dozens of ships similar to the Revenant, all equipped with the same dimensional technology that had made the Empire's fleets disappear. On Zephyr Prime, Emperor Zelthanor watched the transmission with his entire High Council. The ancient ruler had seen the Empire expand across the galaxy, but he had never faced a challenge like this. "Your Majesty," said General Vorthon, "our remaining military analysts estimate that we have fewer than 40 ships capable of any significant combat action. Even if we could locate and attack their hidden bases, we lack the technology to follow them into their phase dimension." "What about our human populations?" asked Councillor Fetara. "Could we use them as leverage?" General Vorthon shook his head. "Our intelligence reports suggest that human communities throughout the Empire have been quietly preparing for this moment. Any attempt to harm them could result in uprisings on dozens of worlds." Emperor Zelthanor studied the terms document that human negotiators had transmitted. The demands were extensive but not unreasonable, and they offered the Empire a path to maintain most of its territory and population. "What is your recommendation, General?" "Your Majesty, we have no military options left. Our fleets are captured. Our territories are in rebellion, and our economy is collapsing. The humans have demonstrated both overwhelming superiority and remarkable restraint. I believe we should accept their terms." The Emperor looked around the table at his advisors. One by one, they nodded their agreement. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over, but perhaps a new age of cooperation could begin. 3 days later, Admiral Kethran materialized on Zephyr Prime, released from the phase dimension along with his senior staff. He carried with him detailed documentation of his treatment in human custody. He and his crews had been treated with respect and provided with excellent medical care. "Your Majesty," he reported to the Emperor, "the humans are not seeking revenge. They want justice, but they are willing to build a peaceful future if we meet their reasonable demands." 1 week after Captain Chen's transmission, Emperor Zelthanor signed the Treaty of Dimensional Peace, formally recognizing human independence and agreeing to all Federation terms. The ghost ship that had struck fear throughout an empire gradually released its prisoners, and the fleets that had vacated their stations returned to help maintain order during the transition to a new galactic balance of power. Humanity had returned to the stars, not as conquerors but as equals who had earned their freedom through patience, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to their own dignity. The age of hiding was over. The age of human freedom had begun again.